Hi everyone, Angus Campbell here. Saturday the 5th of November 2022, bonfire night. Okay, been a little while since the last video, but I've been doing bits and pieces and actually just struggling a bit to get over a joint problem, but that's resolving now. So we've got to get back at it. So next up, we've got to prepare bikes for the forthcoming NEC Classic Motor Show, and that's at the NEC in Birmingham from the 11th to the 13th of November, so a week's time. And the setup is actually beginning on the afternoon of Wednesday the 9th, so we've got to get cracking. So as I've said to you before, what I'm taking this year to support the BSA Owners Club stand in Hall 5 at the event is the Show Fury. We're taking the Ariel 3, and there's also going to be a guest machine which I'm picking up, and we'll do that as a bit of a surprise at the show. Needless to say, it's a 1971 grey framer, of course. So anyway, what we're doing today, well, we've got to do a bit of prep on the Show Fury. The reason being that ever since I've owned this bike from 1992, when I bought it from Vale Onslow, it's had a slow front puncture, and it's still only slow, but I thought that I might as well bite the bullet and try and sort it out, because recently it's also developed a puncture in the rear tyre, and that's because it looks as though the valve stem has cracked and broken away from the inner tube, and it's because they've perished. They're 50 years old. So I've got inner tubes and I'm going to try and fit them, because dear tyre companies around here won't actually touch it. They just say, oh, the classic motorcycle spoked rimmed wheels won't fit in our machine. I've done this before. I hate doing tyres. I've got the kit, so we're going to give it a go. So we'll start with the front wheel on the Fury, as that's easiest to get at. And while we're at it, we'll have a quick look at this brake. Now, this was built in 1970, this bike, so it's an early conical hub. And you can see, firstly, with respect to the cable, what they were originally intending to do was just to put this black little rubber cover to cover the cable in between the actuating arms. But ultimately, they changed that pretty early on to become a spring, and that's to ensure that the cable nipple didn't pop out this end. Must have been a bit frightening when that happened in testing. The other thing we'll just look at is this brake. Look at the actuating arms. The brake works, but I've never had this wheel off. I've tried to adjust the actuating arms, but you can see they're totally wrong. It should be like that, i.e. just not parallel pointing down, but just splayed outwards, and that's perfect, and that brake works well. Now this brake works and that will work, but you can see that the efficiency on this one will be an awful lot less. And I mean, it doesn't look as though that cable really is seated properly in there. So we'll have a look at that. I don't know whether I'll be able to fix that. I'm not too bothered about fixing it, obviously, for the show, but we'll, just out of interest, we'll have a look. And then if we've got success with getting this inner tube replaced in the front wheel, we'll do the back wheel. I've got the kit. I've got my old tyre changing kit and levers that I haven't used for a few years. As I say, I'm not looking forward to this, but I've got some nice big levers, 2 new inner tubes, and we'll crack on with that. The other quick news before we start is that with respect to the two 750s, the Rocket 3 and the A70, then I'm going to lay these up elsewhere over winter. So what I've done is drained all the fluids out of these and removed the batteries and charged them up, and we'll take them out elsewhere to be safe while we begin work shortly on Greg's Jubilee Bonnie, because a box full of goodies arrived recently from Shropshire Classic Motorcycles, who stock almost everything T140V and Bonneville Special specific. So we'll be cracking on with that. But You don't know what we're going to do yet because I've not done the introduction on this bike, so that will be the next video. So without further ado, let me take this front wheel out first and we'll take it from there. And the only other thing to say is that with respect to changing tyres on these, the best way to do it is to sit the wheel once it's out on another tyre. So you can take the beads off the rim, and obviously we'll just need to take the tyre off on one side and try and extricate the tube from one side, which should be possible. But this is the original tyre as well, so they're going to be a bit hard. Anyway, in the corner there you can see I've got a tyre. We'll dig that out, we'll get this wheel out, and I'll bring you back. Let's get cracking without dithering anymore. Right, we're getting there. So just to explain, for those that haven't seen any previous videos on conical hubs, what you have to do with these is each of these cams are adjustable via a vernier, which you get to by taking a rubber plug out and positioning it in the right place opposite the cam, where you can see a screw adjuster which adjusts the verniers, so you can adjust the play and the distance of the shoes between the drum. So you back that off first to give yourselves those off first. There's one on each cam, and then you can then remove the wheel and the drum quite easily. I've got the cable off, as you can see, but also now you can see actually the cams have gone into something like the right position. So I'm just beginning to wonder whether, you know, what was installed originally, this is the original cable, whether that might really be too short as a sort of pre-production, and therefore they sort of had to sort of compromise it, putting it together. Because remember, this is the bike that was hastily put together on the 6th of November 1970 in preparation for the launch. On the 10th of November at the Royal Lancaster Hotel, this engine hasn't got any internals, and there's a few wooden bits on it. So very much pre-production, and you can tell it's a bit earlier because of the Mark 1 frame, where there's no big gussets here, which all the later ones had. And also the clock mountings are different, and the top yoke is different. You see they've got this band attached to the top yoke. I don't even know how that's attached to the top yoke yet. I've never had them apart. But the production ones are intended to have the rings for the cups that mount and are held in by the top fork stanchion nuts. And there's other bits and pieces as well on this bike that enabled me to recognise it in photos as well. So we'll get on with removing the wheel now. Apologies, that cut off. So we'll remove the wheel now, and that's a simple job of just undoing the 4 nuts on each side, removing the fork caps, and it just drops off as well. Also, of course, we've got to undo the what is the brake steady slightly, and that'll slip out of a slot as that lug that's welded onto the slider is slotted at the bottom, so it'll just drop down. Right, there we go. Now we'll do that. Okay, wheel out. That was pretty straightforward, getting the caps off. They were bloody tight, and you've got to be careful you don't over tighten the caps on here because they do crack. So anyway, that was okay. So now what we've got to do is hold the spindle on the other side, and then we undo this big nut here, and we can take the brake plate off. Obviously we don't need to do that to change the tyre, but as we've got the wheel out, let's just have a quick look inside here and see what's going on. But I've got a funny feeling that that cable's too short, hence having to try and bodge it this end by loosening off the verniers so the arms are closer together. Anyway, let's see. There you go, all came off nice and easy. Nut came off very well off the spindle, and then you just slide the brake plate off, turn it over. So it all looks good to me. The only thing that I did find was that this shoe was slightly up and not really centered, and that might have caused an issue. But other than that, everything's correct and in place. You can see here here's your adjustment for your verniers that sit behind. So if you turn these clockwise, that moves the shoe closer to the drum. And when you adjust these, you turn them until they go click up, until they go no further, and then you back them off one click. And that's how you adjust them, and adjust them at both ends. Trying to there, you can just about see it. Clockwise, you'll see that end of the shoe rise that way. Anyway, you can see the verniers quite clearly just here. Eccentric vernier. Okay, so maybe that shoe was, as I say, slightly in the wrong position. The whole lot was raised up, and actually you can see it's done it again. See, that's not right. So maybe that's what's happening. Yeah, that's too far. That's better. So basically it's flush here. The tab's flush with the slot. That's what we need. Difficult to see, I know, but we'll do some jiggery pokery with that. See, that looks lopsided to me. But then that shoe there is raised up in that slot as well. Basically what we need to do is let's get them all slackened off, which is where we need to start. Like so. That's better. That's better. Okay. Right, on with the tyre. So it's the usual trick, on top of an old spare tyre. There was a little bit of air in it still actually, so it's not that bad. First thing to do is obviously take the air out, push the valve in, and then stand on it all the way around to get the tyre off this bead. And even though this is the original tyre, this bike has spent most of its life indoors and away from ultraviolet light, so the tyre is still pretty flexible. And I've gone all the way around it and it's off the rim. So now it's just a case of getting the tyre levers in and see if we can get it off on one side. I'm a bit more confident that we can. But first, before the trials and tribulations, cup of tea. See you in a bit. Good news, it's coming off okay actually. If you stand on the tyre, so you get the edge of the tyre away from the edge of the rim, the beads away from the rim, then it's come off okay actually. And this tyre is more flexible than I thought it would be. And as I say, that's because, probably although it's 50 years old, this bike has spent most of its life indoors and away from UV light, as it's only a show model. So let me crack on. All I've got to do is lift this side, and then we'll take the inner tube out from this side. We don't need to take the other side off. We're not removing the tyre, just the inner tube. But yeah, pleased with this. It's going to work. And I was dreading it, but it's going to be okay. Right, inner tube out. That was pretty good. And I don't know whether I can show you this with one hand, but looking inside, we'll check around, but the inside is not corroded and the rim tape looks good. But we will check all around that carefully, and then we'll there you go, slot in the new inner tube. Obviously valve in first, push the inner tube into the tyre, and then we'll put a little bit of air in the inner tube, and then of course the getting the tyre back on the other side will be the job. It should be okay to get on, but we've just got to be careful we don't trap the inner tube and nip it, because there's nothing worse than getting it all together, blowing it up and finding you've still got a puncture. Right, we'll crack on with that. I won't show you too much of that. I'm sure most of you have done it all before, and I'll bring you back once I've got it in. Yeah, I know there's not much else to see, but the inner tube's now in, and I've got the valve through the hole. I've just put the nut on it, but you've got to leave that valve recessed until you get the tyre on the beads, because otherwise you won't be able to squeeze tyre into the bead with the valve fully out. You've got to actually pull that out once it's on there. So we'll start threading this in now on this side, and there's a bit of air in the inner tube. That's to try and prevent us nipping it. So you just got to be a little bit careful and a bit patient, and keep viewing it all the way around. Right, we'll crack on with that, and hopefully when I bring it back in a few minutes, it should be on. Looks like the same view, doesn't it? But the tyre's back on. Valve now all the way out and tightened up. This nut tightened up. There's a nut on the other side, so that's how they stay, if you like, sort of double lock nut. And what I'll do now is we'll pump it up and we'll give it a bit of a bounce around to get the beads to seat. But obviously it's not too bad a job on this because of the inner tube. We're not looking to get an airtight seal on the beads of the rim. And then once I've done that, I'll bring you back and we'll get that wheel put back in, and we'll see how we can adjust that brake so that the cams are in a bit of a better position, a more efficient position. Yeah, it's out again. Guess what? Pumped it up, leaking quite badly. I've nipped it here. Just there, look. God damn it. Oh. Anyway, one, I've got spare inner tubes. Two, if one of those isn't good, I could patch it. Right, let's get another inner tube. Start again. Right, got another tube out. Just testing that at the moment. Had to replace the Schrader valve in it because that was leaking a bit, but that's fixed now. So I've got that pumped up, and we'll just leave it up for a little while. I've covered it in talcum powder this time, and I'll do that on the inside of the tyre first. That might make it a bit more slippery and maybe less prone to catching on things, but we'll see. I mean, the last effort was because of a lever on it, and talcum powder ain't going to prevent that. But in the meanwhile, let's just go for a walk, because I thought I'd just have a quick look at its original inner tube that I took out that had the very slow puncture. And let's see if we can demonstrate this. Bear with me. You can hardly see it now, actually. It's not the valve, but just below the valve there's a... Sorry, it's not very good. Oh, you can just see it there now. There you go. Pinhole. And that explains why it takes so long going down. So I'm very tempted, if I'm having trouble with some of these other inner tubes. I mean, the trouble is they're all old. That's the problem. And of course the new one that I've got, I've nipped. I'm very tempted to repair that as well, and maybe save the other one, good one that I found for the back. There you go. Okay, I'm glad I was able to demonstrate that. But as you can see, that inner tube is in remarkably good nick. And of course these have never been ridden. So I'm going to nip to Halfords, get a puncture repair outfit, and then we'll come back, see if the other inner tube has stayed up okay, repair this one and maybe another one, and we'll take it from there. Oh, fun and games. Right, that's that done. Pretty pleased with that. Seems to have stuck on really well. So we'll leave that a little while, probably in the house actually, where it's a little bit warmer. And then we'll do another water test on it, make sure it's sealed, but then we'll put that back in the front. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, this one's still good. Tempting to try and get the bike out now and get the rear wheel out, but I'm not going to do that. I'll have a cup of tea and then we'll do the submersion test on this, and we'll try and finish that front wheel off. Right, original patch tube tested, back in, tyre on, pumped up, wheel cleaned, brake plate back on, time to fit the wheel. Actually the wheel's looking a lot cleaner. But just to remind people that don't know it, this bike is original unrestored, so it does have patina on it, but it's led most of its life inside, so it's not done bad for 50 years old. Original factory paint, etc., not faded. So yeah, there's scratches and bits and pieces all over it, but it's polished up all right, and we'll leave it as it is, as a bit of a memento. Right, there she is, all in and all buttoned up. So now we need to put the cable on and we'll see where this brake ends up. So the verniers are both slackened right off, which is why I've got plenty of play in the arms, which is good. So then we'll thread this cable through. So what it does is it goes through this nipple in there, and the outer butts up to against that. Then we've got the little sleeve to put on, which I've just done a quick repair on because one end was off. And then at the other end, you can see the inner cable slides into there and the nipple sits in there, and then that goes in there. So let's get that on and put the cable on the handlebars, and let's see where we are adjustment wise. Right, cable back on. I've not adjusted the verniers yet, but you can see the cable's too short, so that was just thrown together at the time for the show, and it is a bit tight. There's the adjusters all the way in at this end. There's quite a bit of movement, so I will adjust the verniers now, which might pull that arm out a bit. That doesn't look too bad. See if we can pull that one out a little bit. But other than that, that's it. That's how she was, and that's how she'll stay. So let's just adjust it up a bit, and we'll leave it at that. There we go, adjusted up. Quite tight at the top end. A little bit of drag in it, but the wheel's not too bad. And the arms are wider apart than they were, but that's still not right really. This, you know, should be over here, and that should be out a little bit more as well. But it is better than it was, and it does work, and we'll never need to hopefully use it in too much anger, only when we're pushing around, but it should be like that. That's perfect on the A70. And now I've got on the Rocket 3 as well. That's how it should be. And you can see the, as I say, later on, well, very, very early on in production, they changed to a spring over here to try and prevent the nipple popping out this end. And also they did have a few problems with these sliding out as well. So there's also a washer in there as well to prevent this sliding in and out just on the cable. So which this doesn't have, but as I say, it won't be ridden in anger on the road anyway. Right, front wheel done. Hopefully the tyre will stay up, but anyway, the brake is better and it's been cleaned. So let's spin the old girl round and We'll start on the back, which isn't going to be quite so straightforward getting it out. But let's get cracking. Right, the rear end. So, find the split on the chain, drop the chain, undo the bottom shock mount, because then we can lift the chain guard, take the rear brake rod off, undo the spindle. Should be enough room out the back to slide it out on the other side, but if not, we can just take the number plate off and that'll give us enough room. Right, I'll get cracking with that. Right, we're nearly there getting this rear wheel out. I did forget to mention a couple of things that need to also be unbolted, and that's the rear brake torque arm, which is off the brake plate at the bottom here. And also on the other side there's the speedo cable to remove as well, so I've done that. But you can't just pull the wheel out backwards. You've got to actually slide the spindle out, but you can't slide the spindle out without taking the silencer off. So silencer off first, and you think maybe this wasn't going to be a world beater after all. Right, silencer off, and then we should be able to pull the spindle out, but we just need to make a note then of everything on this side, and particularly the other side with respect to spacers and the speedo drive, etc. Make sure everything goes back in the right order. There you go. Actually, it wasn't too bad in the end, because once I undid the nuts on the back of the silencer mounting there, it would drop enough to allow me to pull the spindle out this way. So the wheel's out, the brake drum just came off. That's in good nick actually. I can give that a good clean before we put it back on. Our shoes are immaculate, hardly use the brake ever. But more importantly, we've got everything, let's get that out of the way, everything lined up as it should go back on the spindle with the speedo drive, and the inside space with the speedo drive that goes on the inside of that, left hand side, right hand side. There we go. Actually gives me a lot of access to do a bit more cleaning under there as well, but yeah, it wasn't too bad that. So on to next trials and tribulations with this. I think the tyre is exactly the same size, i.e. 325/50 by 18. Again, original, yeah, 350/18. So it's the same. It's original Dunlop gold seal. Still stick my nail on it. So hopefully it'll be the sort of same sort of effort required as per the front. Only this time we'll try not to nip it. But I think where the biggest problem is the valve stem, I think, has got some cracks around it where it's vulcanized to the inner tube. We'll see when we take it out, but it was blowing like hell out of here, and I don't know why it suddenly went. Suddenly this year actually, but it's just probably perished. Anyway, let's get this tyre off and have a look. Right, well that wasn't too bad. One side of the tyre off the bead. This tyre is actually slightly bigger. This is 350/18, the front's 325/18. This tyre's a bit stiffer, but not too bad. Anyway, got the inner tube out, and as we suspected, split. So that's absolutely had it. But we've got this one that we were testing earlier, and it's several hours have passed as it's evening now, and that's still up, coated in talcum. So we'll see if we can get that in pronto once we've just checked round the rim tape on this one. Right, it's a couple of days later. Following the last clip, I managed to get the tube in and the tyre on that evening. Pumped it up to about 24 psi and left it and the front just to see if they held, and they both have. So all good, which is great news really. So I'm pretty pleased with myself that I've managed to do that. Actually, I haven't done tyres for yonks, and especially stiff tyres. So we'll do a quick polish now of this wheel while it's off, and components, you know, at the back here and on the underside. And then we'll knit all this lot together in reverse order, and I'll bring you back when I've done all that. I won't bore you with all this lot. See you again in a bit. Hurrah! There she is. All done. Back wheel went in no problem. Giving her a bit more of a bully up, ready for the show. And I have to admit, for a 52-year-old gal, unrestored, she's looking pretty well. And some of the areas, you know, behind that back wheel, etc., I've probably never even got close to polishing up, so she's better than she was. And thinking about it, she was built on November the 6th, 1970. So 2 days ago was her 52nd birthday. Not too bad. Anyway, really pleased with that. She's looking well, and I've got those damn tyres done. Front brake isn't quite right, but it's better than it was, but all cleaned up. Right, next in the prep stakes, just walk around the Rocket 3 here, is the Ariel 3. And you're probably wondering, oh God, what's he got to do to this? And the answer is nothing. It's all still nice and clean from when we last worked on it. So I've just got to check the tyre pressures on that, check the tyre pressures on the Fury, and I think we're all good to go. The other quick thing I've got to do is, up at the top there on the shelves, I've got the banners and the info sheet stands. We'll get those down. What I'm going to do as well for the Ariel 3 is I've got a couple of the original posters, so we'll have a little sort of floor mounted display of those for the show as well that go next to that. So I think that's it for now. So the show is on at the NEC from the 11th to the 13th, Friday to the Sunday. It's now Tuesday. Setup is tomorrow and Thursday when I'll be taking these over. And I'm attending Friday and Sunday. I won't be attending myself on Saturday as I've got other commitments. So anyway, I hope if anybody you make it, come over and say hello. It'd be good to meet you. And looking forward to the show. So I'll do some clips, videos and shorts, etc. when we're at the show. Take you around all the exhibits on the BSA Owners Club stand. And also my daughter Charlotte, another avid Power Set member, will be joining me on Sunday, and wearing the colours. Right, that's it for now, everybody. See you all again soon, when hopefully we might get round to doing something with that over there. Now we've got the parts in. Thanks for your interest, comments and any subscriptions. See you again soon. Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.